and everyone who uses the product is a customer.
Hmm.
No, they're not, because is a license. But profit doesn't give a license to leave the planet much worse off than it was before the companies came. And so that's been what's
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I am Rajesh Joshi, and today we are honored to have with us a distinguished veteran in the world of business strategy and leadership. With a career spanning over 38 years, Mr. Kothari has made transformative contributions across multiple sectors, including fuels retail, lubricants, FMCG, technology, and business consulting. He has successfully led large scale global projects and teams, creating substantial business value for top tier brands like Shell, Jio-bp, and many others. His leadership has touched diverse markets ranging from India and Southeast Asia to the USA and Europe, with his strategies playing a pivotal role in multi billion-dollar joint ventures, innovative brand management, and groundbreaking business transformations. Thank you for being here, Mr. Kothari, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders. Your presence today is truly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, for those very generous introduction. And it's also my genuine pleasure to be here to share my knowledge and experience with the wider world, wider community outside.
Great, sir. So let's start this conversation. Mr. Kothari, with a remarkable 38-year career that spans across diverse industries from fuels retail to FMCG and even tech, you've had the opportunity to shape global brands and businesses on a large scale. You've not only led teams, but also turned around businesses, created innovative strategies, and developed key partnerships across different continents. Looking back on your journey, what would you say has been the defining moment or key milestone that set the stage for your continued success? And what do you think drove you to embrace such a diverse and expansive career?
It's a great question, Rajesh. Considering the length of the career and everything that's happened during that time, I wouldn't say there's a single point that I could identify, but rather maybe a small handful of factors. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and it takes me back to very early in my career, pretty much at the start of my career. I remember I joined the organization and they were sharing with me about the organization design, the structure, and basically where I fit into that organization, which was essentially at the front line. And as they took me through the structure, the one thought that came to my mind is chairman and managing director. That's where I want to be at some stage in my career.
Okay. Okay.
The key word I want to
aim straight at the top. Nothing else.
but however, the key word I want to underline there is not ambition, it's
Yes.
desire.
Right.
The word I used was I want. And I think this word I want is part of the transformative journey that I undertook throughout that career, starting from that time, worked my way through many different roles across the world, different countries, different levels of responsibility. And the latter part of my career, pretty much exclusively at a global level, working on strategy. So, for example, when I was at the front line, I quickly understood the decisions are made at head office. I want to be there.
Right. Right.
And when I was at head office, I understood that the business investment and the business priorities between my country and the other countries are done at a regional level. I want to be there.
Right.
I want to be part of that story.
Part of, right.
And so on and so forth. That took me through my career. So the desire is the one part. The other thing that also plays a big role. We talk about change all the time. We use this term VUCA world and change is the only constant. And change happens all the time. And change is disruptive. It can be destabilizing. It can result in probably some difficulties. That's the wrong way to look at it. When change happens, it's not specific to me or to you or to any one person. It affects the ecosystem, it affects the environment, it affects the organization.
Absolutely.
And that change is intended to take you to another place, to take the business to another place, to the organization, the economy, whatever. And that's where the opportunities are. When change happens, opportunity arises. And you've got to have the vision to identify what opportunities are arising and prepare yourself in order to tap into those opportunities. So the prepare is the third point, that prepare comes from continuous learning. It's a lifelong journey. You never stop. It doesn't stop when you graduate from university and get into your job and say, I'm qualified and I will do this job now and I do it very well, then I'll grow in my career. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to constantly keep upgrading your knowledge to keep pace with the times. So much has changed throughout my lifetime, your lifetime, and will change in the future, probably at a faster pace.
Right, right.
And I think the last component that comes to mind is people. Because without people, nothing ever happened, nothing ever will happen. I've been fortunate to have very good mentors, bosses, coaches, people around me who told me, this is how you do things. This is what you should not do. This is how you handle situations, handle challenges, work on what the future is going to be like. And within those people, so there's people at work and there's people in your personal life, your family, your friends, whoever is close to you. To me, it was my family, my constant source of support and motivation. Whenever I've discussed an issue saying, well, this is going to happen, the typical response I get is, you can do it. This was made for you. You're going to crack it. So, the constant source of motivation is what kind of drove me. So, as I said, it's a confluence of factors. There's luck, an element of luck. Change doesn't happen when I want it to happen. But there's preparation, there is hard work, there is desire, and there is the support of the environment you're in, the people around you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. It is really incredible to hear how each phase of your career has been such a learning experience and a stepping stone towards greater leadership. It is clear that the diversity in your roles and industries has given you such a unique perspective on business. And well, somebody who has such a beautiful support system around, I do not think any challenge would have been really much of a bother. Mr. Kothari, your work on the Jio-bp joint venture stands out as one of the key milestones in your career. Managing such a significant multinational partnership between two corporate giants like Reliance and BP must have come with its own set of unique challenges. From navigating different business cultures to aligning strategic goals across borders, it must have been a delicate balance. Looking back at those moments, what were some of the toughest obstacles you faced? And what was your approach to not just overcome them, but ensure the partnership thrived and delivered lasting impact?
Yeah. So Jio-bp, it emerged from a legacy business within Reliance, in the business of fuels retailing, a business that Reliance entered a couple of decades ago, went through its own cycles. And at that point of time, a few years ago, they were looking at, they were in a situation where they'd lost their original competitive advantage because competition always catches up, and were wondering what next. And part of what next was an intent. At that point, it was just an intent to engage with BP into a dialogue of some form of partnership. So a bit loosely defined at that point of time, but that was the direction they were going in, which is when I came in, joined the company. In due course, the dialogue with BP started. So we started working on what form and shape is this partnership going to take, if at all, is it going to happen. So the obvious thought that comes to mind is, as part of the leadership and responsible for certain functional part of the business, I need to work on strategy. I started working on strategy, got my team, started a lot of discussions, exploration, all of that good work that happens to go into strategy. But by this point of time, there was one thing I recognized. The business was a legacy business of Reliance. And so it comprised of a group of people who had been in the Reliance system, one of India's most admired companies, largest companies, successful, profitable, financially very savvy, all the good things that we know about Reliance.
Right.
And associated with that, a certain definitive Reliance culture. And then having kind of the intent to grow the business again meant that Reliance brought in an additional set of people, essentially from the government oil companies, the public sector fuels marketing companies.
Right.
Now, that's a very different world, right? It is directed by the government. Their systems and processes are aligned with a very different way of thinking, certainly also very successful, because these are not just very large companies in India, but amongst the largest in the world in this.
Right. Absolutely.
So two successful groups of companies, but certainly very different cultures. And then add to that, as part of the strategy evolution, one of the questions, or rather one of the big questions which came up was integrating within the larger Reliance group to leverage certain efficiencies or advantages that we could exclusively offer in the market. And so I refer to other parts of the group being largely Reliance retail business and the Jio telecommunications business. Now, again, these are very independent verticals at different stages of evolution, operating in extremely different environments and with resources that have come from very different places. So as you can imagine, yet some more different cultures.
Right.
Not to miss out, there was the obvious partner, BP. And I was engaging with discussions with people from Spain, Australia, United Kingdom, Germany. Fortunately, there is a certain uniformity in culture in multinationals. And so there was a BP culture. And here I found myself in a melting pot of multitude of cultures. And key thought that came to my mind is a quote from, I believe it was Peter Drucker, who said, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Okay.
So as I had embarked on the strategy journey, I began to realize strategy later, let's first figure out culture. And I had to learn, and I came from yet another culture because I was an outsider to both Reliance and BP, coming from yet another major multinational, one of the largest in the world.
Right.
And so I had to, first of all, learn how to navigate through this complex system.
Wow.
Way around how to get done here. And how do people, they're across the business. So it's not as if you can just say, you do this and you do that. It doesn't work that way. The other thing was to communicate and align on the vision. Where are we trying to get to? So if you have a strategy, that strategy is supposed to take you somewhere, but if nobody knows what you're trying to do, they're just going to stay within what they always did. And so that brought in the third element of change, adaptation, adapting to change, which is not something that had been happening a lot in the past. So you see that the complexity of the issue was less of a business issue, but more of first understanding the culture, aligning people on a journey, and then ultimately bringing that strategy to life.
My goodness me, must have really been exciting times. I can just kind of visualize with all of these, as you rightly said, a melting pot and something being cooked there with so many various ingredients coming in from different parts of the world. That's really incredible how navigating those cultural nuances and managing expectations across global teams is both challenging and rewarding, I must say. I mean, that it must have been really enriching too. Mr. Kothari, leading a diverse team of 50 across various functions must have been both a rewarding and challenging experience. I can imagine that motivating such a large group while keeping them aligned with the company's vision and goals required more than just strategy. It likely needed a deep sense of leadership and connection. Could you share with us how you cultivated leadership within your team and what key principles or approaches you used to ensure every team member felt motivated, empowered, and aligned to achieve those ambitious goals together?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is kind of a continuation of the story that I narrated
Right.
just now. And it's very interesting. So, the very first thing is when I looked around, I said, well, the first step I need to take is align my own team, the
Mhm.
team that I work with. I had a group of about 50 people. Within that, there were sub teams responsible for different areas. And I asked myself the question, so how do we do this? Uh, and the thing I came up with, and the first thing there were several elements again there. The first thing I came up is I said to my team, we need to be an ace team. If we
Mhm.
want to win, only the best teams win. So if you're going to be an ace team, you're going to win. And they said, yeah, okay, that sounds very nice. By the way, how do we become an ace team? I said,
Okay.
so the ACE stands for the A stands for accountability.
Mhm.
So let's start being accountable for everything that's happening and everything that's not happening. If something doesn't work, it's not enough to say, well, this thing didn't work because we didn't have the support from that area, or we didn't have the funding from here, or whatever. There's always issues, right?
Right, right.
If you tell me there's issues, we haven't got anywhere. So let's all take accountability, including me and you and everyone down the line. Take accountability for whatever you're tasked with to say, okay, if something's not working, what do I do about it? What's the solution that I need to drive for, and how do I get there? And how do I overcome the obstacles or hurdles that come in my way?
Mhm.
Invariably, you will get to some outcome.
Mhm.
So that was the A. Then we come to C. C is for collaboration. So there's if you leave a large group of people undirected, they will always tend to focus on what they need to do, the task they have. And this is my responsibility. I work on this. This is not my responsibility. It's other person, other department, other team. And I said, no, that's got to stop. Don't work in silos.
Mhm.
Engage the people who are part of that decision making process or part of delivering on that. Engage them upfront. Work together on the issues and work together to find the solutions. So that changed the way people started working. And the E in ACE is for embracing change.
Okay.
I said that's critical because if we always do what we've always done, we will always be what we are.
Right, right.
So get ready that everything that you've done in the past, even though there is a lot of pride in the successes that you had, we need to change because the environment outside, the world outside has changed. We need to move on.
Absolutely.
So with this guiding philosophy, I address the first part, which is behaviors. These are the behaviors that you need to demonstrate. And then once we've got the behaviors part, the next part was leadership.
Mhm.
So leadership, I said, break down that word into leader and ship.
Mhm.
Visualize in your own mind a ship, and let it be a small ship. It can even be as small as a rowing boat.
Mhm.
And on that ship is a leader, typically known as the captain. So you visualize the captain of the ship standing on the bow and looking into the future or the distance and saying, I need to go there. I want to take my ship over there. That doesn't mean he's going to get there, he or she, whoever the captain is, doesn't mean the captain is going to get to there, wherever there is, because there's a whole team behind them. They've got to row that boat. They've got to row in sync. They've got to row with energy. They've got to be motivated. And so who's going to do that? That's the role of the captain, not just to see where you're going, but how you're going to get there using all the resources you have, which is your team in this case, but in a wider sense, all the resources that you have.
Right.
So we talked about the behaviors, we talked about leadership. Again, that in itself is not quite sufficient because you've got to have the motivation. Those people who are rowing that boat, they need to get motivated to understand, why am I doing this? And why should I do it in the best possible way that I can? And so motivation doesn't come from getting your paycheck at the end of the month. Motivation comes from people getting recognized and rewarded for the work they do. It comes from having a vision of where you're going to take them. And when they get there, they need to know that they've got there because of the efforts that they put in. So these were the kind of the ingredients, and there were obviously a lot of actions behind all of these ingredients. But that's the nutshell of how we got to in terms of the behaviors and leadership elements.
Wow, wow. Mr. Kothari, I must say you make it sound so simple that people listening to this would say, okay, no problems. Okay, I'm going to start doing it. But I can vouch for the very fact that this is no mean simple task. It must definitely involve a whole lot of thought process that goes behind all of this. And it is absolutely clear that leading a team of that size and diversity requires more than just management. It requires vision, empathy, and a strong sense of purpose. And at the same time, the leader, as you have rightly said, should be ready to share the vision with the entire team so that they also know where they're going. I mean, where their efforts are going to lead them to. Absolutely stunning. That was, and any young person listening to this, I'm sure he's going to feel blessed, getting this kind of an insight. Mr. Kothari, you've been instrumental in developing and implementing growth strategies for global brands. What do you consider the most critical component of a successful growth strategy in today's globalized business environment?
You're very right, Rajesh. The business environment has become so globalized. And over my lifetime, I have seen a transition from local, as in just very local market, to integrated nationally, and then across borders, and then across continents, and then finally, there are no boundaries anymore. So it's become very globalized, and it's become a lot more complex in the process. But with all of that complexity, there come a lot of ways of developing strategy. So, and we could have a whole few weeks of workshopping to talk about all the different approaches to strategy, but I like to keep things simple. So I have my own kind of favorite model that I follow personally. You know how diamonds are evaluated? Everybody knows actually. The four C's. There's clarity.
Yeah.
The four C's of evaluating diamonds. Strategies are just like diamonds. They shine bright. They're valuable if they work. And therefore, why not apply the four C's to them? So these four C's, the first C is cash. When you have a strategy, it's not good enough to say, well, I have this new strategy and we're going to grow our business. Because the first question the board is going to ask is, so show me the money. What is your strategy going to deliver? Is it, tell me the cash flow. Tell me the investment we're going to make. Tell me the risks involved. What are the risk mitigation measures? What's the financial exposure? So questions like that, right?
Right.
The board wants to see money of the day that will result from your strategy? Or if it doesn't work, then what could be the potential negative impact on the balance sheet, on the finances of the company? And do they have the risk appetite to take that kind of? So basically, money-oriented questions. So the first C is cash. And a strategy that doesn't have clear line of vision on the financials involved is not a strategy.
Mm.
So once you've got that in place, okay, you have earned the license to kind of go forward with your strategy. So the next C is customers. Now, in very simple terms, it's easy to say, okay, we have this product, and who's the customer? Everyone who uses this product. I personally really don't like that approach at all, because that is just a very manufacturing mentality. I can make product X, and everyone who uses the product is a customer.
Mm.
No, they're not, because so if you think of a mass market, there are millions of customers out there. Coca-Cola, FMCG products, retail products, personal care. There's millions of customers out there. But not every customer is looking for the same solution, because they don't have the same need. And
Absolutely.
there's plenty of interesting case studies. We won't go into that now. But basically, at the end of the day, if you segment the market, clearly understanding what are the different needs of all the different potential customers, and then you identify which of those groups of people am I going to target.
Mm. Mm.
The corollary means which ones am I not going to target.
That's
So
right.
now, for the first time, we're making a statement: not everyone who uses the product is my customer, because they're not the right customer, or rather, my product is not the right solution for those people. So you've segmented the market, you've decided on your targeting, and how is your product going to solve their needs. So this is the customer side of the story. Now, obviously, there's competition. So that's the next C. Who is the competition? There's traditional competitors who make similar or same product categories, and there's non-traditional who make substitutions for, so substitution for the camera industry is the mobile phone industry.
Right.
Now they've built in their own some examples like that. So you need to understand the competition. What is it that they're doing? What is it that they're doing well? And what is it that they're not doing well? And most importantly, what is it that they won't be able to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because that last one is where you need to come in and say, I can do this and you can't. And that's why, Mr. Target Customer, you buy from me. A great example is Apple. They've built their mobile phone. Everyone else made mobile phones with the same touch screen, with everything else. But Apple created a whole ecosystem around that, with their app store and all the entire ecosystem.
Right.
They don't give access to any external uh, sort of other users. So, so you've now understood the competition and where you fit in. And the key part there to underline is the differentiation. Because if you make the same product that the next competitor is making, you're just a me too. And
Right.
either you're going to have to be the most cost efficient producer forever, in which case you can offer lowest price, and in which case no competitor will beat you. But forever, I mean, no one really can do it forever, right?
Yeah.
Much better, rather than being a Me Too product, to be a differentiated product which can't easily be replicated. And most of the successful companies, that's the space they play in. So, and the last C then is, now that you've got this great strategy about, what are you going to offer, how much you're going to make out of it, and all of that, how are you going to reach into your target market, which is the C for channel. It could be an indirect channel or a direct channel, depending on your business and industry. And how are you going to set up the channel? What's the cost structure of having a channel, either direct market or indirect or through wholesalers, distributors, retailers. So whatever channel you have to have that in place. And if you're extending what you currently do, then are you going to use the same channel?
Right.
So these are the 4 C's. It's not a single strategy. It helps you visualize uh, how to evolve your strategy to suit whatever circumstances you're in.
Wow, wow. I mean, please let me process that. I'm sure all everybody is going to take a minute there to process this. This is uh, an encyclopedia on how do you actually, approach this entire. People use strategy as a word just to kind of impress, but this is like a deep dive into what strategy would actually mean. And it is so fascinating how global strategies must evolve constantly to stay ahead. Your experience, sir, clearly shows that growth is about more than just scaling up. It is about understanding the market, being adaptable, staying innovative, and as the 4 C's that you have just spoken, if your strategy is well stitched, taking these 4 C's into consideration, then I think uh, at least you're starting on a good footing. That's absolutely phenomenal, Mr. Kothari. Well, moving on, as you look ahead, how do you see yourself evolving in the boardroom? Are there any specific challenges or opportunities you're particularly excited to take on? And what kind of leadership do you hope to bring to future strategic discussions at the highest levels?
I think the boards are faced today with a very complex and difficult sort of set of objectives. Uh, if you go back in time, I think boards were, I won't say easy, but the focus was much narrow, that they need to drive the company into the direction of success they want to take it in. Today, the environment puts a lot more demands on the boards. There are the table stakes, which are statutory compliance, governance related issues, risk management. So these are table stakes. They basically your license to exist. If you don't do any of those right, you're going to be out of business, no matter how good your product offering is or your profitability, but you will soon be out of business. So a lot of attention does need to be paid to these, far more than in the past, because uh, governments and authorities have learned from failures that have taken place over the last so many years. So apart from table stakes, there's also the kind of the new imperatives. I'll say the newer imperatives, because new tends to denote coming in the future, whereas newer means they're already here.
Already, right.
They came quite recently. And so I'm referring to things like artificial intelligence, not just the technology, but also the ethics related issues behind it. Then we have cybersecurity. There's a lot of cybercrime. There's a lot of security related issues which are coming up today. There is ESG, and ESG is a vast domain, but I think the time has already come when companies that are genuinely delivering on ESG principles are the ones which are going to turn out to be more profitable. There are, in fact, investment portfolios exclusively dedicated to ESG companies, ESG rated, highly rated ESG companies.
Right.
So ESG is something that boards need to now pay much, much more attention to than even in the recent past. There's CSR, which has grown over the last few years and continuing to grow in terms of what needs to be done on the ESR front, on the CSR front. So things like that. These are I would say, the newer imperatives. And then the third part is, I'd say, the business challenges. Now, let's say if the first two buckets are done well by a company, but if they're not able to focus or face the business challenges, there's really not much point being in business anymore, or they will not be in business soon. So the business challenges ranging from, obviously, the predominant theme is always growth. Where is growth going to come from? What's happening in the environment? What are the new opportunities? What new areas might we need to get into?
Mhm.
And so how do companies evolve? There is, in fact, I comes to mind a book called The Living Company. A
Mhm.
company is like a living organism. It grows over time. It has to, it's born, it grows, it dies. And you can prolong the lifetime of a company depending on the kind of uh, health that your company is in. So, so growth is the predominant imperative for companies. Growth then depends on strategy. Uh, and part of strategy in this globalized environment is about international markets, either international expansion by companies, and Tata did that so successfully during the lifetime of Ratan Tata. That's the best example I can think of. Or conversely, international collaboration with companies that want to come into the Indian market. It's just two sides of the same coin.
Right.
And also for boards to keep an eye on what is happening in global markets, which could impact our business here.
Right.
Changes in technology, changes in demand, changes in availability of supplies, supply security, and we saw a lot of that during COVID. So companies have changed into this China plus one and all these new theories that have come. Uh, so kind of taking those three areas, the first being uh, the statutory requirements, the second being the newer imperatives, and the third being the business challenges. And I think this business challenges, so you obviously cannot find the core competencies for all of these areas in one person or one group of person, except for those very few remarkable global business leaders that we know. Uh,
Right.
it's not quite commonplace. And I think that the last one, which is the core of a business enterprise, is something where I believe I can bring a lot of value given my global experience, worked in many different markets and work with many different markets, even if I'm not physically located there. So an understanding of how the world today operates in world of business.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is completely clear that your strategic mindset and leadership will continue to shape the direction of any board you're a part of. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Uh, you mentioned a little, you just touched upon ESG. Uh, how do you see these principles influencing business strategy today? You have mentioned some, you have kind of touched. Would you like to kind of take a minute and maybe explain it a further in detail?
Yeah, so ESG itself has been evolving for some time now. I do believe India is a little ahead of the curve because India, I think it was roughly about 10 years ago that India implemented the BRR, Business Responsibility Reporting
Right.
Framework, which evolved as of last year into the BRSR, which is now linked to the Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations, uh, which focuses on ESG being the environment, the social responsibility, and the governance frameworks that companies operate in. Having worked with a company like Shell, which has always held these close to heart, probably even before the word ESG became a kind of a global principle for companies to
Mhm.
operate with. Because in Shell, we always talk about good governance practices. We talk about health, safety, and environment. Very, very, very strong on safety, being a very high risk industry in terms of the safety aspects. Um, I think companies around the world need to have already begun to understand uh, it's not just about making a product and selling it and making a profit. So always the baseline why companies exist. And if they don't make a profit, they will cease to exist. So then no point doing anything else if they don't make the profit. So profit is essential to survival. But profit doesn't give a license to leave the planet much worse off than it was before the companies came in. And so that's been what's driving, governments around the world to come together and enforce ESG principles.
Right, sir. We can actually continue this conversation because there's so much to learn from you. For paucity of time, we are at the end of this podcast. But for one last question, your experience at Directors Institute has likely provided many new insights into corporate governance. Can you share how the course helped you refine your decision-making approach?
Right. The course design, I think it's really comprehensive. So there is the core component, which is essentially all of the frameworks and policies, the Companies Act, the institution of directors, the committees that are run by the board responsibilities itself, secretarial practice. There's just, there's so many areas. I can't list out each and every one of them, but you get the point that there is a baseline knowledge that every aspiring independent director must have. It's important that given the responsibilities associated with this position and with the board overall, it's really important that any aspiring independent director must have that complete set of knowledge. Now, the course doesn't stop there itself. So it goes on to expose you to current practicing board leaders, people who are existing chairmen or directors in many different companies, who talk about their practical real life experience on the board. So that's where it gives a tremendous value addition, because then you know what real life is all about and not just what's written in the Companies Act or SEBI LODR, but what these people are actually faced with in real life.
Right.
I would say the third part, the cherry on the cake, so to speak, is the live sessions that are conducted. And there's a series of them that takes place throughout the course. These are incredible. I mean, they're couched in a very simple to understand and recollect framework, and cover essentially all the important parts of the entire independent director's suite of responsibilities and what you'll be exposed to. At the end of the course, I get the feeling that I have the cherry and eat the cake too. It's not often that you get that feeling. So when you put all of this together into such a fantastic package, I genuinely feel that I am well equipped to transition from my executive career to a board level responsibilities. So I really did appreciate the course very much.
Well, it is absolutely great to see how Directors Institute is really helping leaders like you maybe refine, maybe define their approach to governance. And we're glad. We're glad that this is really turning out to be useful, helpful, and at the same time insightful. Your candid insights are truly invaluable, Mr. Kothari. Thank you once again for taking the time to join us today and share your incredible journey with us. On behalf of everyone at Directors Institute, we wish you continued success and all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope we have many more opportunities to talk.